Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. Live from Austin, Texas, broadcasting worldwide, it's Alex Jones.
Well, in the last week, Ron Paul, Lou Dobbs, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, Max Kaiser, Gerald Celente, they've all predicted what's now happening to our financial system. But Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author multi times over of RichDad.com, going back 5 years, he's been breaking down everything that is happening and unfolding in our society as well. And his new book out, Conspiracy of the Rich, The 8 New Rules of Money, RichDad.com. He's just finished another book, A Unfair Advantage, which is soon to be released. He is an American investor, businessman, self-help author, and motivational speaker. Kiyosaki is best known for Rich Dad, Poor Dad series of motivational books. He has written over 15 books, which have combined sales over 26 million copies. And he is somebody who really tells it like it is, and he's with us for the next hour here today. And Robert, good to have you here with us.
Hey, thank you. I'm honored to be on your program.
Well, honored to have you. Well, this is a short segment, but just you told everybody what was going to happen. How did you know? What did you say was going to unfold, and where are we going from here?
Well, the pieces came together back in 1972. I was a Marine Corps pilot flying over Vietnam, and I saw the Vietnamese people panicking, and they wouldn't accept U.S. dollars, and they wouldn't accept piastre, their currency, and all they wanted was gold. And I knew something was up at that point, and over the years, the pieces just kept coming together. So that's where it started for me.
That's when you really started to learn how monetary systems really work?
Well, the pieces, like I said, I wish I could say I knew. I mean, even today, as much as I know, it's still smoke and mirrors as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, but going back just in the last 5, 6 years, you've predicted exactly what's happening now.
Yeah, well, that's not hard to do. I mean, all you do is listen to what Greenspan was saying and Bernanke was saying and Clinton and Bush, and you kind of get the idea that you're being, screwed. So it wasn't that hard to figure it out. I think the toughest thing for people is what can I do? What can I as an individual do? And I think that's where my company, Rich Dad, comes in, is we teach people how to avoid the pitfalls of falling prey to the ultra-rich,
Let's get into falling prey to the ultra-rich, this system they've created to destroy our wealth and transfer it to themselves. Then we'll get into your solutions after the break. But when you talk about falling prey to them, how are people falling prey to them? What are their traps they're laying?
Well, the idea of saving money, that's ridiculous. After 71, when Nixon broke the Bretton Woods Agreement and put us on the dollar standard, not the gold standard, then anybody who was saving money was the biggest loser. And then in 1974, the government passed ERISA, Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And the reason they did that, as best I can tell, is because my father's generation, the World War II generation, wasn't in the stock market because they got hammered during the Great Depression. So guys like my dad, he wouldn't go into the stock market. So in 74, they passed ERISA, which is now the 401k. And now they require most employees to put their money into mutual funds. And I don't know if you know the ratio, but John Bogle of Vanguard says you put up 100% of the money, you take 100% of the risk, and they take 80% of the profits. And this compounding expenses just rips the little guy apart. So they don't have a prayer for their retirement.
But they have all these well-paid pitchmen out there to give people, the illusion that they're making a smart investment.
Right, and then what happens in our schools is the bankers go to the schools and tell your kids to save money. At the same time, Obama printed, $1.9 trillion? And then they keep telling you to invest for the long term in the stock market. And as you know, long-term investors for the last 10 years have made zero. They've actually lost money.
But gold's up fourfold, though they try to suppress it. Robert Kiyosaki, RichDad.com, an icon out there. No need to really introduce him. We're going to come back from this quick break and give him the floor to walk through the pitfalls of the elite, the scam investments versus what he does with his money to great success. He'll be with us for the next 55 minutes. We're honored to have him. I'm Alex Jones. Robert Kiyosaki is our guest, richdad.com. He's here to talk about how the ultra-rich have set up a scam to transfer your wealth to them. He's going to go over the different types of corruption and manipulation that are going on, and then ways to avoid this and protect yourself. He has charted and chronicled and predicted everything we see unfolding today, and that's the type of guest we have on. Not all the big paid-for mercenaries, financial mercenaries on TV and radio that give you disinfo. We have people on who've got a track record of being accurate, and he's one of the most accurate out there, richdad.com. Again, our websites are infowars.com and prisonplanet.tv. Robert, you started getting into some of the ways they transfer our wealth. Let's go over that, and then ways to protect ourselves, and then where you see this society and economy going. Robert?
Well, when you say to your child, go to school, get good grades, and get a safe, secure job, the moment you've done that, you've programmed to pay taxes at that point. So the harder you work, the higher percentage in taxes you pay. And then they tell you to save money. And the problem with saving money is, from the fractional reserve system, the Fed and the Treasury are allowed to print money. So your money is devalued in the savings plan. The third, when they print money, you're eaten alive by inflation, and you can see inflation creeping up in food right now. And then the fourth way is they tell you to put it into a retirement plan filled with mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and things like that. And what happens is the taxes go against the person who does that, but also their money is flowing to the rich. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong, because every coin has two sides. So the money is always flowing to guys like me. So when I write Rich Dad, Poor Dad and all this, I'm saying, look, that money in savings is going to me. Your money in your 401k is going to me. And when you pay taxes, that money goes to me, and I do mean me. So that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was to wake people up and say, look, you only have basically two choices. You're either going to make the money or have your money stolen. And that's the system. It's terrible.
Well, earlier you were talking about the pension funds and the ratio and 401ks, the mutual funds. Now they're openly, and this is already happening in Europe, it's called austerity, where almost all the taxes we pay goes to service debt that they made out of nothing via fractional reserve banking, and now the derivative scam that even leverages it further. And we know that now they're announcing, we're going to save Social Security by raising the tax. We're going to save your private pension fund, your 401k, by taking it and putting a tax on it. And so now as people get ready to retire in record amounts, magically they're changing the system to steal most of that as well. And then through government-run health care, they make you pay into the system. I mean, it's incredible.
It's fascism is what it is. It's not even socialism anymore. Fascism was where the government does it at the point of a gun to force you to do things.
Yes.
And that's what I fought in Vietnam twice, and I didn't fight for fascism or socialism. I fought for capitalism. And I think that's what's being robbed from us is the free capitalist society.
Go through the basics and talk about some of your new books, Conspiracy of the Rich, 8 Ways, the 8 New Rules of Money, and The Unfair Advantage, one of the newest books. But, I mean, go through specifically then, quantify what you mean by when you pay taxes, it goes to, Ben Bernanke. When you make money, they get it. So, I mean, how do you make money and keep it? Explain that.
Well, let me explain. There's always two sides to a coin. I've never seen a one-sided coin yet. So the tax laws are really designed to make the rich richer. The problem is if you go to school and get a job or become a doctor or a lawyer, the tax then flows to the rich. So a guy like me, I have made more money in the last 3 years, 2007 to 2010, tax-free. And so debt and taxes work for those with financial education. Debt and taxes work against those without financial education. So you can go to Harvard or Oxford and all this and still know nothing about debt and taxes. I am millions of dollars in debt, but that debt makes me rich, tax-free. And that's where financial education kicks in. This stuff they teach kids to put your money in a mutual fund, I'm glad they do that because that's where I get my money from. That's really the second side of the coin.
Okay, explain that to people.
Well, There's two kinds of people. You either park your money, which is savings and pensions, and people who move their money. This, in my world of finance, is called the velocity of money. I want my money back as soon as possible so I can buy another asset, and I mean an asset, not stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. So I'm constantly moving my money, and what the system, the banking system, does is programs you to park your money. So you put it into savings, and they save, and then you put it in a retirement plan, let's say starting at 25, and you hope it's there at 65. I do not do that. And a financial education would teach you how debt and taxes make the rich richer. And that's all I'm saying to people when I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I said, your house is not an asset. It's the bank's asset. And if you could wake up to that, oh, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And now we have people who are walking away from their mortgages because the mortgage is worth more than the house. And that's what a little financial education, these guys wouldn't be able to brainwash you as easy. I'm not saying they're good or bad people. I'm saying if you don't know, someone's going to pick your pocket.
And your books quantify that down to fine detail, but give people the basics, as they're saying, what is this Robert, talking about? What is he saying here? I mean, tell us what you do with your money and what the rich do with their money.
Okay, first of all, there's two books people should read if they want to understand Rich Dad. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was really the basics. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a book on accounting, but it sold 24 million copies because it explains what our school system doesn't teach you, even in accounting classes. And the second book is a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant. And a quadrant is the four people that make up the world of money. The E quadrant stands for employees, so you could be a CEO or a janitor. The trouble with the E quadrant is that's the second highest tax of all the quadrants. That started in 1943 as the Current Tax Payment Act, which went against the Constitution. And they could tax, the government got paid before the employee got paid. Now the next quadrant is the S quadrant, which stands for small business, self-employed, or specialist, like a doctor or a lawyer. The tax laws changed for them in 1986 with the Tax Reform Act. And they were just, that was part of the Reagan thing. They were trying to collect more taxes. On the right side of the quadrant, there's B, and B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, and I stands for investor. There's an investor class. Now, many people invest, like they invest in a mutual fund, but they invest, but they're not investors. Investors are pure capitalists because they're always raising capital. So for a guy like me, since I have more than 500 employees and I'm always raising capital via debt and things like that, I pay no tax. See, if you look at the tax code, the Internal Revenue Tax Code, most of the code is how to avoid taxes. But the trouble is, if you go to school and you're taught by the socialists of the school system, they're actually teaching you to be the proletariat, the working class, working for the bourgeois, the rich. And I don't want to be bourgeois. I just want to be a capitalist. I don't want to pay all that tax. See, the government needs guys like me who provides jobs, and I have large apartment houses, and I have oil wells. I produce constantly. So the tax laws are written for me, except the school system doesn't tell you about the other side of a coin.
So how are you, physically, live in nice houses, have a lot of money, sell, tens of millions of books, but then not pay any taxes?
Well, because debt and taxes are written for people on the B and the I side of the quadrant. You see, you have to, when 1973, I came back from Vietnam. I was a Marine helicopter pilot, went down 3 times. I refused to fight anymore. I'd had it, because I knew I was being lied to by my government. So I come home and I asked my poor dad, the head of education, what should I do? He says, why don't you go fly for the airlines? And I said, well, then I become a pawn of the system. So with that, I went to listen to my Rich Dad and became an entrepreneur because I did understand a little bit about tax incentives and investing and like this. So I took up real estate courses starting in 1973 because you have to learn to manage debt. Because as you know, is after 71, the dollar became debt. So you have to learn to manage debt.